Gluttony isn't just about food. It's about feeding too much on everything that will dull your strength. You can starve your body, but still somehow overfeed your mind. And a man who can't control what he consumes will eventually be consumed by what he tries to control. My name is Nolan T. Painter. I'm an aspiring young man with aspirations greater than anyone will ever understand. And in today's video, I want to talk about overcoming your gluttony. This, I believe, is the 7th video in our series, 7 Things to Overcome and 7 Things to Become if you wish to be a good man. So what does gluttony really mean? What do I mean by gluttony? Well, overindulgence in comfort, noise, or pleasure. That's gluttony. Doing too much of anything. It can be food, social media like scrolling on Instagram, seeking validation, filling your mind, spirit, or body, right? As we're all familiar with just nonsense. These are all forms of consumption that can really hurt you. So every time you scroll on your phone, every bite of food that you get, and every bit of distraction adds weight to the soul. It adds weight to your mind and your ability to actually think straight. If a fat person can't run a mile, how can a person who's mentally destroyed think and reflect to the same extent? How can someone who's addicted on their phone, addicted to porn and masturbation and lust, how could that man be someone who's worth actually providing love to someone in a relationship? He's not. The same way someone who's overweight won't run a marathon, someone who's stuck on lusting is never going to love. So the gluttonous man, the person who I just described, is going to be someone who's full of everything except discipline. Because gluttony is the opposite of discipline. Because if you're disciplined, you're going to have restraint. You're going to pause and pull yourself out of environments that will lead you to be gluttonous. Because pleasure without restraint just becomes a poison, and you are going to hurt yourself. And I want to clarify that. There are pleasures in life you can enjoy. There are beautiful things in life to take that are precious. There are things to enjoy. However, if you overindulge in enjoyment, not only you're going to fail to truly appreciate it, but you will make your life worse. And you will actually not just make things worse, but pull yourself away from the so-called pleasures that we all chase after. So, if you overindulge in something, you will eventually lose it. So naturally, you must learn to not overindulge in anything. So let's look at it this way. The mind feeds way before your body does. The mind is so much more important to the human body than the own body is. Look at it this way. When you get scarred physically, it'll heal, but you might leave a mark. If you get scarred mentally, that wound will be left you for the rest of your life, because it's only natural to grow that way. If you're constantly punched in the face, next time someone raises their hand, you're going to flinch. Not because you're a wuss or you can't get over your fear, but because every time someone raised their hand, they punched you. So naturally, you should do that to protect yourself. That would be an emotional scar. And it's a representation of how our minds take a lot longer to transform and heal, which makes it so much more potent when we become gluttonous with our minds. So what you let into your mind shapes what your body will crave too. The things that you fill your mind are going to ultimately dictate what your body does. So if you're on Instagram constantly seeing motivational reels about David Goggins and running and increasing your prayer life and bettering the people around you and living healthy and going to the gym, your body is likely to reflect those lifestyles. However, if it is filled with nonsense and lusting, your body likewise is likely to reflect that lifestyle. So let your mind be filled with things that will make your body a temple, one which is worshipped and not one which is filled with shops. If you've read the Bible, you'd be able to appreciate that one. But if you haven't, what I'm saying is, let your body be something which is actually good through filling it with good thought, not something that is tarnished and ruined by filling it with nonsense. Endless entertainment being one of the nonsensical things we fill our minds, and dopamine are going to kill the silence, and then thus your reflection, and then thus your growth. because one comes after another. You need time by yourself to reflect, and to reflect, that will result in growth. But if you're constantly filling your life with noise, you don't get that time. And you can't be hungry for success if you're filled with distraction, if you're full with this nonsense. How can you be hungry? How can you be starving to want to win in life and really get successful if you have everything you need right in front of you? How can you starve for the burger if you've already ate a crap ton of pancakes, if you get what I'm saying? So replace your consumption with creation. Feed the mind what builds, not numbs. So feed your body, feed your mind with creation. Build something. Use your energy on making something rather than just consuming things, because you're going to do two really good things for yourself there as a man. The first thing is you're going to spend less time consuming things, so you're going to fill your mind with better things. You're going to ultimately be healthier. And two, you're actually creating something out of it that will improve your life. So you're not only improving your life on a base status effect, but you're now double improving your life because you're creating something that can ultimately lead to greater success in the future. So how does gluttony weaken yourself as a man? Well, ultimately, too much comfort makes you fragile. We're all familiar with this. You have a fragile man who wasn't raised properly because he was living his life comfortable. And when pleasure becomes your default, when being fragile becomes your default, pain feels unbearable. It gets insanely hard to go to the gym when you're this fat guy where it's hard to do anything. And it's insanely difficult to find people and love them in good relationships when you're too stuck just destroying yourself. And when pleasure becomes that default, when pleasure becomes your life, when you're filled with things that are made easy, it gets really hard to leave that. And a man addicted to his comfort, addicted to the pleasure, will never know what he's capable of. And that's a sad thing. If you don't push yourself out there, if you don't try, you truly will never know how far you can push yourself. You will never know what you could have done. And the sad thing is, within that sad thing, is you can do anything. You can do whatever you want. You can go be an astronaut. You can go and be in the army. You can go be in the NFL. You can go be in F1. You can go be a YouTuber. You can go be a streamer. You can go do whatever you want if you try hard enough. And no one can stop you. But no man is going to explore that and actually reach that unless he can overcome his gluttony. And overfed bodies, nevertheless, and overstimulated minds produce lazy spirits. Because how are you supposed to, invest within spirit, your own body, your own soul, your own religion, if you're a slob both in your mind and in your body? You won't have any discipline to work. And gluttony also kills your gratitude, because if you're overfilled by something, how are you supposed to be grateful for it? There's even gluttony in relationships. If you fill your life with too much lust or too much of a nonsense in your relationship, how are you supposed to be grateful for it when it comes? That's even a worry for many people in a relationship, when they are taken for granted. So the more you have, the less you can appreciate. That's why in life there's always less is more, and people who like to live on less things in life because they know they will appreciate more. And then look at it this way. So how do we fix things? Well, you got to feed your body discipline. So you got to eat to perform, not to indulge. And when you are eating, you have to take the time to find the right healthy diets. So if you're bulking, you're not going to eat a bunch of crappy food. You're going to make sure you eat the right food. You're going to be disciplined with it. If you want to learn a bunch of videos, you're going to learn and you're going to study. You're not just going to watch 10 videos and then not do anything. So simple meals, structured sleep, moderation. It's not punishment, but you're actually ordering your life in such a way that you will be benefiting from it. And when you control what enters your body or your mind, you're going to actually reclaim your power, because then you control your own life. And how can you want to help someone else control their life and build a relationship if you can't even control your own? And that's the base effect as a man. That's the base. That's level 0 as a man, is controlling your own life. So you should avoid both extremes as well. Starvation and indulgence are really the same sins, just with different faces. So if you starve yourself, not in a holy way where you're fasting, but if you are starving yourself from something that is important, you are hurting yourself in the long run. But if you are gluttonizing, if you are doing too much of something, you're also hurting. That goes back to the whole, in life you should have balance saying. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be working insanely hard and filling your life with hard work. This specifically refers to indulging in too much social media poison or physical food poison that will hurt you. You should actually spend most of your effort indulging in things that do make your life better. And you should almost gluttonize in things that make your life better and make life more beautiful and worth living and more successful. However, that's not the case with most people because that's really hard and thus people don't do it. So, ultimately though, the goal isn't to be empty, it's to be filled with what sustains you, not what satisfies you. So, how do we feed the mind with purpose, right? We know we need discipline, but where's the purpose come from? Well, you got to replace scrolling, you got to replace this nonsense with studying. So why do you got to study? Well, find a reason why you have to study. Maybe you have to study to learn a business. Maybe you have to study to get a job. Maybe you have to study to get better grades in your school. Find a reason to do something, and that will let you find your purpose. So grow with your gratitude, and your noise will eventually be replaced with silence. And in that silence, you can reflect and grow. So you don't need more information, you just need to have more reflection at work. That's why you gotta be careful of watching all the guru YouTube videos, even my own stuff, because if you're sitting here in this trap just constantly consuming content, you're not actually improving your life. You're just living in a loop. And knowledge without application is moral gluttony and mental gluttony, because you're not doing anything with the beautiful gifts you've been given. And a good man will feed his mind with what prepares him for his purpose. He's going to work on specifically what elevates him to his greatest calling and not give his attention to what distracts him. And if you lead your mind with discipline, again, like I said, your body will follow. Pardon me, I had a poor sleep. And of course, balance. So you need the right kind of hunger. In life, I think you should always have a bit of imbalance, because if you truly want to be the greatest in all time, if you want to be the greatest of all time and the greatest of anyone else on this planet, you need imbalance. The best volleyball players in the whole world who are in the Olympics, all they do is play volleyball. The best streamers, all they do is stream. The best woodworkers, all they do is work with wood. But with hunger, you got to be careful. Hunger is sacred. When it punishes you, you actually get to grow because you want to work hard. And you need to stay hungry for the right things. You need peace, strength, and truth. But if you're hungry for the wrong things, you will eventually fill your mind with nonsense. So don't seek fullness, seek fulfillment. And a disciplined hunger will build rather than indulging. And because you're disciplined in your hunger, that means you're going to find the right foods to eat. A disciplined man, when he's hungry, is going to find the chicken and white rice, and that is going to be his meal for the day, not go out and eat a bunch of ice cream. And true satisfaction, true fulfillment is found in serving, not consuming at the end of the day. So, ultimately, you should be more focused on providing the food, not consuming it. So anyways, overall, overcoming gluttony is about restraint, not rejection, and you got to work hard to restrain yourself and have discipline and conquer yourself. And of course, you should feed your body, but feeding your body should act to serve you so you can serve others, not so you can just live a life of comfortness, or just comfort. But additionally, it's not just your body, but your mind. You got to be careful in filling your mind with whatever you find on the internet. And a man who controls his hunger, the man who controls his mind, is a man who is likely to control his destiny. And then thus he can get whatever he wants. And finally, a man who eats to live, a man who spends his day just eating, is going to lead in such a way that is incomparable to everything else. Because if you eat to live, if you eat to actually have a fulfilling life rather than nonsense, then you're going to learn how to lead based off of already leading your base life. And you will find that hunger for purpose. My name is Nolan D. Painter. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.